You guys, take a seat, because trust me, you're gonna need it for this one. I legitimately got an actual migraine yesterday from all of the research that I've been doing, just staring at a computer now for days on end. I got an actual migraine and was physically ill from thinking so hard about this case. And if my mouth is blue, that's because I'm drinking a smoothie, hoping that at some point in this video my brain will finally start working, because the other fact about the matter is that it's 7:30 in the morning right now, and I'm filming this on the day it's going up at 7:30 in the morning because I love you guys and because I tried filming yesterday multiple times, but my migraine prevented me from getting anything right. So I'm sorry if my lighting is wonky. It's super early. I'm not bougie enough yet to have a little lighting set up, hopefully, eventually. But as for now, this is kind of what we're working with. Today's video, it's almost like the deeper I dove into the evidence and the deeper I looked into everything and the more I talked myself through the case, the more irritated and confused and conflicted I got, and the more ideas popped into my head, and I changed my opinion at least 10 times. It's just been probably the most confusing thing I've done so far. So I planned this video now for a couple of weeks, and oddly enough, things kind of changed as I started to research. So my plan for this week forever now has been to do Amelia Earhart's disappearance. And ironically enough, last Sunday a new documentary came out called Amelia Earhart, The Lost Evidence. It aired on the History Channel. It was all over the news, all over social media. People have been going crazy over this because they introduced a new bit of evidence. Because that came out, that kind of threw a whole new angle into this, and as if this wasn't already probably one of the most complex cases, it just really threw me for a loop, and it took a lot of investigation on my part. And it's a very difficult case, and there's a lot of controversy going on right now about it. There's a lot of negativity surrounding it right now, and I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. So brace yourself, because this is going to be a very long, very complicated and complex video. So I first want to start off by saying, after this video, I do highly suggest you go and watch the documentary. It's got a ton more information. I included as much important facts into this video as I could, but this documentary definitely has a ton of things that I think everybody should see. So on June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan, which is her navigator, set off in their Lockheed Electra on an eastbound flight to circumnavigate the entire globe. So this had never been done before, obviously. They planned it very meticulously to make sure nothing went wrong. However, on July 2nd, a month later, they left Ley Guinea and they were supposed to go to Howland Island for their next fuel stop, and they lost communications and were never seen again after that. So the US did a 2-week search. After their 2-week search, they declared them lost at sea. The US didn't really give any more information than that. It was very just kind of like, well, they were lost at sea. There was no, oh, well, we found their plane. There was no body. There was nothing. They found absolutely nothing. So there have been many theories surrounding this, like many theories. Theories that she was a spy, theories that she didn't want to be in the spotlight anymore and decided to get a new identity and like basically fall off the face of the earth. There's theories that she crash landed on like a million different islands. There's so many theories out there that I can't even begin to dig into all of them. And because of the documentary just recently coming out, I kind of want to focus more on that. So the documentary is all based around this one piece of evidence that they supposedly found. So a retired US Treasury agent named Les Kinney apparently has just been poring over the National Archives trying to figure out what the heck happened. And he claims to have found a picture that was misfiled that to him looks like Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan, and it was on Jaluit Island in the Marshall Islands, which was very close to where the disappearance occurred. So they kind of took this piece of evidence and went flying with it. This piece of evidence is absolutely groundbreaking. Obviously, when you find a picture of someone or even a video of someone, that's like 100% proof that they still were out there after they supposedly went missing. That's kind of a big deal. It's more to people than just word of mouth. Oh, I saw them, or oh, I think they might be here. People don't tend to believe that as much as actual like visual evidence. So I understand why they got very excited about this picture, and I understand why they, I think, kind of let their head get clouded and just ran with it. So they took the picture to multiple people to have it tested. It was definitely authentic. So also in the picture is a ship in the background that they are pretty sure was the Koshu, and after a couple investigators looked at it, they also agree that they think it was the Koshu. On the back of the ship was actually an airplane, and they measured it. It also ended up being the exact same length of the Electra that Earhart was flying. So at this point, they kind of really got excited and pretty much determined that it was in fact Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. They even used facial recognition software, but because the photo was so grainy and blurry, they weren't able to get an exact answer. However, with overlays and things like that, they once again pretty much concluded that it was probably Fred Noonan and Amelia Earhart. So the theory is she left Lae, New Guinea to head to Howland Island. The weather was not good. It was really stormy outside. The ship that was communicating with her, actually they logged that it had noticed she was flying a little bit further north than she was supposed to. And they had kind of an agreement where if she only had about 4 hours left of gas, she would turn around and head to a small strip of islands that was essentially in line where she had just come from had she been directly flying to Howland Islands. So what they think happened is that she essentially was just going north, and it was too hard to navigate, so she ended up about 280 miles north of Howland. The last that anyone heard from her, she had told them that she only had about 4 or 5 hours of gas left. So they're assuming she turned around and backtracked, assuming she was in the right place, and instead of hitting the strip of islands where she could have had a gas fill up, she accidentally hit the Marshall Islands and landed in Millie Atoll as technically an emergency landing. So Millie Atoll is a bunch of reef islands. There's tons of coral. I'm sure it tore up the plane a little bit when she landed. On the island itself, there have been 2 different expeditions. They have uncovered multiple pieces of metal, which they have actually linked to airplanes, and part of it fit exactly the same curvature as part of an Electra. They also found some sets of wheels the Japanese military actually used for transporting big things on dollies, so they could have used those wheels to transfer the plane to the other side of the island, which would have been the only way a barge could have pulled up to take the plane off of the island. So on the island itself, a lot of things already point to the possibility of Amelia landing there with Fred Noonan and the Japanese finding them and pulling the plane off the island and taking them somewhere. In the documentary, they interviewed a man who said that his father told him he was kayaking off the shore of the island and actually watched the plane come down. He didn't talk to these people. Keep in mind, at this day and age, we're about to go into war with Japan, and they had a strict ban on Americans. They didn't just go over to Japan. There was no travel like that, so majority of these people had not even seen a Caucasian person before. He did say that he saw a white man and white woman get off of the plane. Tons of people actually heard her distress call. There were multiple people in the US that just liked browsing the radio and actually found her channel that she was on and heard bits and pieces of her distress call. All these people had the exact same stories, they all heard the exact same things, and at this time, keep in mind, there's no way to like spread information that fast, so all these people separately contacted our government saying they heard these things, and the government totally ignored them. I'm going to leave some links down below where you can actually go and see bits and pieces of the letters that were sent to the government and people saying what they heard, and they all add up. Also, she sent out a Morse code on the second day that she was left and said 280 North Howland. The Navy assumed that just meant 280 miles straight shot north of Howland, and they went there and didn't find her, but now we're almost pretty sure that she actually meant 280 degrees north Howland, which would have immediately shot them straight to Millie Atoll Island. So she essentially got out her distress call but worded it wrong, and because of that was never found. Ironically enough as well, there is actually also evidence that the government knew that she was in Millie Atoll. After this, they're pretty sure she ended up in Jalowit, which is where the picture was taken. So in this picture, you can see Amelia and Fred Noonan on this dock surrounded by about 6 natives, and there's a ship in the background with what they think is the Electra on the back of it. There was actually a man, a doctor, and this is how they kind of solidified their picture evidence. that said that he was called to the Koshu, the ship, to take care of wounds on a man. So in all of the distress calls that all these Americans heard, all stated that Fred Noonan was injured, that he had injured his knees. Now, this is where you really need to start paying close attention. So the doctor said that he was called to the ship to treat a white man and a white woman, and that the man had a cut on his forehead and was hurt on his knees. So that already is multiple stories of people taken all around the same time that claim to know the same little bits of information. He says he remembers that all the Japanese people there were so intrigued by this couple. Not only were they Caucasian, but it was a female flyer, and they thought that was like the absolute craziest thing. They had never seen that before, and they were all in shock from it. So it was said that next they were actually taken to Saipan, which is in between Marshall Islands and Japan, and it was kind of where the most active military was for Japan at the time. And there were actually a couple of sightings of them here. The first one was when they were actually taken onto the island. They were on the airbase Chico, which was a very new airbase that they were actually just in the process of building, and a little 12-year-old girl was going to take her brother-in-law lunch and noticed that something had to have been going on. They wouldn't let her in, and they were very like closed off, like strict, like don't come in here, just acting strange. And so she watched from behind a tree to kind of see what was going on. She saw two Caucasian people walking along the base surrounded by other Japanese officials, and she said that she thought it was two men, which would coincide with the fact that Amelia Earhart also had like really short hair. She dressed like a man. In the time, a lot of women did not wear pants very often, and she wore like pants and a button-up, just a lot of things that at the time females didn't wear. And the only reason the little girl said she knew that it was a woman is because she heard them calling her female flyer. So that right there immediately points to Amelia Earhart. And once again, you have to remember, they didn't know who Amelia Earhart was. They had no reason to lie about this. Everyone who had these sightings of her had no reason to lie. They didn't know who she was. The only reason they remembered it so vividly is because, first of all, she was a female pilot, which they'd never seen before, and second of all, she dressed like a man in the time, and third of all, she was a Caucasian woman and a Caucasian man in a fully Japanese area. So there was one more sighting. It was said that they were taken to a big jail in Saipan where they both ended up sick. It was said that she ended up with dysentery. This has been a theory for a really long time. And there was actually a woman who saw them. In the jail, there is a historian, and her great aunt actually was there and did the linens. And she told her that when she was taking the linens, there was a Caucasian woman, and she said it was funny because she said it looked like a man, once again, right in line with Amelia Earhart. She could know for a fact it was a woman just dressed like a man, and she said that she was very sick, which would fall in line with the dysentery, and that she had kind eyes. And in this part in the documentary itself, something is actually said, but before it was said, I remember thinking the same thing. You know, when we look at these historical events, we just see them as kind of like markers in time, and we see these people as like, oh, these things happened to them, but we don't see them as human beings. And we kind of skip past the fact that they had emotions, they had feelings just like us. Just because they lived in a different time doesn't make them less human beings. And she went through that. She supposedly was in this jail, and if you guys watch the documentary and see what it looked like, you are going to feel heartbroken for her, because it was the tiniest cell. I don't think there was a roof on it, and to think that she was sick with dysentery in this cell, locked up, it will break your heart. And finally, the last sighting of Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan was unfortunately at their death. So another woman came forward and said that she actually saw both of them killed, and she ended up taking people to where she saw it, and they actually found bone fragments that matched up with a 40-year-old Caucasian woman, which, once again, why would that be there? In that time period, it wasn't normal for Caucasian women to be over there. So it only leads to one thing to me, is that it was, in fact, where Amelia Earhart died. She said that they were taken out to the outside border of a cemetery, and they had their graves pre-dug, and Fred Noonan was actually beheaded and pushed into his grave, and Amelia Earhart was shot execution style, and she fell into her grave. This woman said in great detail what happened and described things in great detail, and it's literally gut-wrenching to listen to. People have been back, I want to say 2 or 3 times to this site and done multiple excavations on it to see. They found the bone fragments at first. On the last expedition, nothing else was there to find because 2 Marines actually came forward and said that after the Marshall Islands were taken after the war, they were ordered to dig up 2 graves in the exact same location and dispose of the bodies, which means the U.S. knew that Amelia and Fred were buried there and they didn't want anyone to know about it. So this is just heartbreaking because there's so many points in this story that point to the US knowing, and there's a theory that because we had just recently cracked the Japanese codes, they didn't want to help her because that would prove that we had hacked the Japanese codes, and they didn't want to give up that bit of knowledge, so they essentially just let her be taken captive. There's multiple documents showing that we knew, of the US actually stating that we knew she was taken and we knew she landed in the Marshall Islands and the Japanese had her, and pretty much it was a known fact. Obviously the US knew that the bodies were there. There were graves there, but the bodies had in fact been taken out, and the only bone fragments they found was of a 40-year-old Caucasian woman, and Amelia was 39 when she went missing. So many people, from veterans to all the people on the Marshall Islands, saw her, and I will say, the picture is not real. The picture is not true. This new bit of evidence is not true. It was proven by a blogger, which a bunch of people wanted to dismiss, that it was actually from a book in 1934, which would place it years before the disappearance even happened. And when I did my own research, I mean, I translated Japanese, like I did everything, and I did find that it is in a picture book from 1934. You can actually find it in the National Diet Library online. This book was published in 1934, meaning that picture could not be Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. And that's where I get kind of irritated. So this whole time, at first, I did not believe this theory. I didn't believe it. There is another theory where she landed in the Gardner Islands that were about 350 miles south. They found bone fragments there. They found a woman's shoe, a couple of other things. I don't know how credible it is because I haven't seen a lot of actual evidence on it, and when the body was found, they claimed it was of a Caucasian woman, but the doctor that did it also was only a physician. He wasn't properly taught to do things like that, like measure the bones and figure things out, and doctors to this day say that all of his information that he wrote down was unreliable, so I don't know if I trust that theory. I'm not discrediting it, I'm just saying there's not as much evidence that that is a possibility. There's a lot of people who strongly believe that that's exactly what happened. But just because this picture isn't true doesn't discredit the rest of the information. And I feel like that's kind of what's going on right now. A lot of the news outlets are making fun of the History Channel for this, and I agree. I think it was extremely unprofessional and an extreme mess up to not check a date and not double check a picture that you found and assume it fits into what you want it to fit into. However, the rest of the evidence to me is even more compelling than the picture itself. Like when I first saw the picture, I was like, I can kind of see it, but not really. But when I started really digging into this theory in general, I really believe it. There's tons and tons and tons and tons of sightings of her. There are people from other theories, and there's evidence from people hearing her distress call saying things that match up with other people who claim to have seen her and seen Fred Noonan from this other theory. There's pieces of all the theories coming together into this one theory, adding everything up to she ended up in the Marshall Islands and she was killed on Saipan and buried there. I don't think that that theory at all should be discredited and ignored because of the fact that the picture is false. I seriously think the History Channel deserves a big slap across the face for it because it really worked a lot of people up, but their theory is pretty freaking solid. Marshallese believe this so much that this happened that it was literally taught in their history that she landed on their islands. There were actually stamps made with her on it and with the Koshu on it, the ship that got her, and her plane. These people are 100% convinced that this actually 100% happened, and they have no reason to lie about it because they had no idea who she even was. this was just a random white woman who fell out of the sky from a plane. So even though the picture is fake, I still 100% think that they were seriously onto something in the History Channel's documentary. I think you all should go and watch it. I think it is very important. It's got a ton of really good information in it. There were a ton of incredibly intelligent people on the documentary who did a ton of research. There's just too much evidence supporting it still, despite the picture, and I don't want that to get lost in the negativity surrounding the picture, if that makes any sense. Somebody woke up in the middle of mommy's video. Oh, yes, you did, and your hair is crazy pinks. Look at it. Oh, crazy pinks. Got a marker on you. Say, welcome to having a big sister. Welcome to having a big sister. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you still agree with the theory, even though the picture is 100% false. I even found it myself in the National Archives through a really quick search. I just want to know what you guys think. Let me know down below. I know a lot of people are super excited, and a lot of other YouTubers that have done this video are 100% with this new evidence. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to follow all my social media links down below, where I let you know the videos that I'm going to be doing next and when I'm filming them, and ask your suggestions. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Stay